So let's get going. And as people join in, they can join in. That's perfect. Um, so hello everyone. My name is Sarah Mckernan. I'm an account executive here at Log My Care. I'm traditionally from, or originally from Dublin, Ireland. So I moved over to London about a year ago now, which is crazy how fast time flies. But I've been loving every minute of it. And while I've been with Log My Care, I've been helping a ton of providers, ranging from, one site residential homes to, massive 15 plus site LD supported living environments as well. Move from pen and paper onto a digital system, but also helping teams move from digital systems that they're using at the moment onto something a little bit more long term, a little bit more customizable, a little bit more user friendly for the next 5 plus 10 years of their time. So I've spoken with a couple of hundred plus providers over the last year or so. I'm really, really excited to be giving this talk today around, choosing care management software, more kind of like on a high level of it, and what we kind of hope to support you in doing in the way to make that decision. The more questions, the better. For those of you who've just joined, we do have a chat there. My colleague Stuart is in there, and he's going to answer throughout. But no one needs to listen to me for 40 minutes straight, as much as I'd love that. So do pop in with questions. I'm happy to answer them as we go. I'm going to leave a couple of sections, a bit of a pause for us to have a bit of a chat, if possible. But if not, I can continue on. So today we're going to run through a couple of sections, kind of, what to consider when going digital, how to do that, how to get your staff involved, how to manage that change management piece, a couple of features that are important depending on, what you think is important. We're going to go through a demo as well, very high level, and then at the end, again, leave a session for Q&A. Okay. At this point, just one last time, everyone can hear me all right. That's all good, and everyone can see the screen. Cool. Fab. Okay, brilliant. I'm conscious, I'm sure on this call we've got a mix of people that have either got systems at the moment or are beginning that process. I think it's really obvious at this point, that the CQC are pushing everyone towards digital. There's obviously a ton of funding available at the moment, which is really, really exciting. But I think with that comes like a ton of challenges, having like another body, making these decisions for you. But while it is important about going digital, there are a couple of, other exciting things that come with it. So yes, it's going to help with your CQC inspections. Yes, it's going to support that single assessment framework a little bit more in terms of the evidencing, etc. But we've kind of highlighted five other areas that kind of support the reason to go digital, or the reason behind why, I suppose. The first one here is enhanced efficiency. Okay, conscious adds two buzzwords together. But the idea here is that if we have everything in the one place, on one system, on one platform, it's going to increase the productivities within your team, both from like a management point of view, but also, your support workers on the ground. Nobody goes into care to write paragraphs and paragraphs of paper. You've gone into care in order to be able to give back to those that you're supporting. And so going digital helps a little bit in this way, removing like duplication of effort. So, we don't want to live in a world where we've changed a care plan every 4 weeks or every 3 months, and we have to print off a ton of paper. We have to get everybody to sign it manually. In some cases, you have to drive that care plan from head office to all the other sites. And that's really, really time consuming. There's nothing efficient about that. And so that's draining like a massive amount of productivity, but like for yourselves as managers, reg managers, but also for your, your support staff as well. Second area then is around transparency and trust. I think this kind of goes back to that idea of having like a single source of truth, having everything in the one place gives you way more visibility on what's going on in your service. And requests about, needing information like incident reports on, let's say, Charlie over the last 3 months. Like, I've spoken to teams where that would take 4 or 5 days to scan all of those sheets of paper onto the laptop or onto the computer, and then you have to put it all into a file, and then you have to send it off to a third party or a social worker or the courts or something like that. And that is just 4 days that nobody has in terms of time management and stuff. So when we can get everything in the one place, it increases our visibility. So how quickly can we find that information? How accessible is that information there? And how amazing would it be to have maybe a senior manager being able to access that information instead of just one manager, or one reg manager. Imagine you had like team leads being able to access that information to send it off. Okay. Third point here is around data-driven care. So I think this is sort of where we're trying to get to. Like the crux of it is that going digital is going to be like the bare minimum, and having everything in the one place. And then once we have all of that, like what amazing things can we then go on and do with all that information? So this is like a big thing for Log My Care long term, is that great that you have a system in place, great that we're recording and evidencing everything, but now that we have that information, how can we move from being in like a reactive state? So, Charlie keeps falling, he keeps having tons of incidents, but how can we become proactive about that? How can we look at the data that we have all in the one place now and be like, cool, well, it looks like Charlie keeps falling in the kitchen. Do we need to do something about that? Can we prevent that? And can we prevent that happening to other residents or people that we support in that service? Okay. Key one here, obviously, driving towards more person-centered care ties back into my first point around nobody going into care to write paragraphs of paper. We want to give you as much time back as possible to be on the floor, to be with your residents or with the people you support, understanding what they need as they grow within your service and the time they spend there. We don't want you holed up in your offices or glued to the laptop, trying to do all of this stuff manually. And last but not least on this point, around seamless communication. So I'm sure the majority of people here are communicating through WhatsApp, through emails, whether that is to your staff, to each other. Now we're in like a hybrid work environment where people work from home sometimes as well, but also with like family members and stuff. So the kind of idea then behind having, again, everything in the one place is that you can work from home and you can dial in online, and everything is there in real time, which is really, really cool and really, really powerful, and then gives you all a little bit more, I suppose, autonomy on what your day-to-days look like. So I suppose that's kind of wrapping up the why behind going digital, in conjunction obviously with CQC pushing it and those new frameworks, etc., that are in place. Any questions on that so far? Anything in the chat? Anything that doesn't resonate there, or take a second. Cool. Thank you, Martha. Unfortunately, I can't see anyone, so I can't call out anyone. Perfect. So moving on then to a couple of things to consider before going digital. And I think I think there's a lot of support at the moment, and there's a ton of information as well, which is amazing. And there's, webinars like this, and the ICSs I know are putting on in-person events, and they're putting on sessions, and they have forms to go through that you can filter down to like narrow it down on in terms of providers. But just so you have it here, your own for your own purposes. I think first one's first is kind of defining what you need. So yes, there's a ton of support out there to get you to narrow it down. But like there's a lot out there. There are 14 providers on the NHS's assured suppliers list. And like, that is a lot of time if you were to demo all of them. That's 14 hours essentially plus. So I think trying to use as much material as out there as possible to narrow it down. Point two is consulting with your care team. So while care is a massive sector, I think when we're working in certain areas on certain service types, teams switch up and people move between services or move between areas or homes, etc. So consult with your teams. There's probably a good few people that you're working with at the moment that have used different softwares before, have used different technologies, and are able to provide a little bit of an insight into maybe what worked well for them in another place. But they might also have ideas of what they would like to see in a solution, and what a really good solution would look like to them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about team members and getting like support workers involved later on when it comes to like the change management aspect. But it always helps to kind of like, start bringing it up with everyone involved. 3, conduct research. Everyone does this. There's so much like information out online at the moment. So I think this is a pretty bog standard one. I know that the Facebook groups and Facebook pages are really, really helpful as well. You could sit on the most fabulous demo in the whole entire world. But it really helps to have, validation from people in the same space as you that are using these platforms every single day. So I definitely recommend doing that. Point 4 is being adaptable and being prepared to change. So look, going digital means that you are being prepared to change in the first place. But I think what's important to note is that it's going to be really hard to find something that's going to tick all the boxes. Typically, the solutions that are on the market at the moment are kind of off the shelves. There's like an element of customization to it. And, when I'm working with people, while I never want them to have to change their whole entire processes, I'll always try and highlight that there needs to be a little bit of flexibility in how you're doing things at the moment and how that might map out onto a digital solution. Okay, now this doesn't have to be negative, it's typically not negative, but maybe the way you're managing your handovers at the moment are super time consuming, and we're duplicating our works, we're writing 2 sets of notes at the end of the day, at the end of the shift, whereas maybe something like Log My Care means that you only have to do it once and sign off on it once. So there always has to be a little bit of room there for flexibility in changing how some of those internal processes are. So don't go in with both eyes open, I suppose, on that one. And then finally here is knowing how to measure success. I think this is I think this can be a tough one to do. I don't think any of you have enough time in the world for your jobs, and then to sit here and be like, right, in a year's time or in 6 months' time, what does success look like in terms of a digital system? I appreciate that there's tons of pressure from all angles to either get something in, to implement it, then a ton of questions, super scary to change, and then to sit there and be like, right, well, I can't even think about what it looks like when we have something in place. But really, really important to take maybe 20-30 minutes out before starting the journey and being like, cool, what's success going to look like? Is that like everybody using the system in the first month? Is that like high adoption rates? Is that I no longer want the shelves behind me to be filled with folders and I want them to disappear in the first 6 months? I want the family members to be involved in the family portal, and I want to stop having to WhatsApp everyone. So, important to measure them out there, and be able to work towards that long term as well, which is pretty important. Um, Perfect. Any questions on that so far? Or anything there that maybe someone hadn't thought of, or no? Perfect. I can see one there about supported. Yeah, we do, of course. We work with a ton of supported living communities, but Stuart has answered that for us. Fab. Moving on. So the next two slides are very much around change management, and how do we do that. And I've mentioned it kind of at the start a little bit there, around people hate change. We're humans. It doesn't come naturally to us. We love routine. We love things that we know. And you know, if we're confident that something's working in one way, amazing. Let's keep it that way. And like, why do we need to change? And I think probably the most common thing that I hear in my role, when we are looking at making these changes, is around, how do we get our employees involved? Or we have a ton of older support workers or older carers that aren't particularly great with technology, and how do we manage that, and how do we introduce it to them? Or people being like, well, English isn't their first language, so the notes are working for now, like how are we going to introduce this? And I think they're all really valid points. I always joke that if you can use Amazon or you can use Facebook, you can use something like Log My Hair, as it is that easy. But when it comes to getting your care workers involved, I think the two most important points on this slide is anticipating the change or the resistance, and then the empowerment of it as well. So, um, you know, the end of that ICS funding. I think we're into the last year of it now. Anyone that I'm communicating with or chatting with at the moment is super concerned about that resistance to it. And I think if we acknowledge it and we know it's going to happen, we can get on top of it super quickly. And then when that resistance does come, we're not as concerned. We've seen it coming, we've prepared for it, we've talked about it as like a senior team, we've talked about it as managers, and this is how we're going to combat it. Okay. I think the best way to do that, from what I've seen, is empowering those to be involved in the decision-making process. Now, I appreciate sometimes too many cooks can spoil the broth, but I think when it comes to something like care management software, it's really important to get your support workers or your carers involved. Those end users, the people who are going to be using the platform every single day to record the care and evidence care, you know, there's just no reason not to get them involved. Not everyone. I don't expect to have, calls with 85 plus staff members. But what I've seen work really well is picking out one or two, or maybe four, particularly difficult ones, and who are very resistant to the thought of change, or maybe who've been in the services for years, and getting them involved and being like, cool, let's get you trialing the system, let's get you involved in the demos, what you want to see, what would you love to have fixed if you could wave a magic wand? And by including them, it kind of breaks down that barrier between them versus us, or managers versus support workers. We're involving you in the decision, and you can get excited about it as well. So we did a bit of work with the Epilepsy Society, and they did this really well through a trial period. They had people using it, they had support workers using it, and they were excited about it and about the ease of use piece. Okay. Any questions at this point? I do have another slide on this, but no. Perfect. Brill. Just to finish off this piece then, last 3 points on this. I think the most important one here would be just to monitor and adapt. So I think this is the idea of, we've communicated across that there's going to be a change. We've anticipated the resistance and the questions that come with that. And in order to mitigate that, we have, involved our support workers or our carers that we think are going to be the most resistant to it. And so after we've done all of that, I think being in a position to take feedback, acknowledge the feedback, and if you can action and if we can work on it, amazing, let's do that. It shows that we're listening and they've been heard. And it just makes that process a little bit easier. And chances are, if you've got one person giving feedback or asking questions or having issues about one thing, someone else is going to be having the exact same problems. So I think that 2 lines of communication always helps. And yeah, just allows everyone to feel like, the decision hasn't just been made and pushed upon them. And then, of course, typically whatever provider you do go with, there's always support and training, and making sure that's like done really, really well and included with everyone. Okay. Perfect. We are flying through this. Fab. Any questions at this point? Brill. Love that. Moving on then. So next couple of slides are all around features. And again, I think this really depends on what your needs are as a service. So appreciate that we could have people who are really focused on elderly care at the moment here versus providers who are more in the LD supported living space. So your feature needs are going to be different based on your service. However, I think another super common concern I get is, or that I hear, is people being like, well, I don't know what I need. I don't know what I don't know. And I think that's where going through like 7+ providers begins to get really confusing, because you're like, oh, well, this company does this and that looks really, really cool. But this other company doesn't have that, but they have something else and I really like the look of that. And then it suddenly becomes really difficult to decide what you need, and what's going to be the most important for your service and your people that you're supporting. So what we've done is we've kind of bucket them into the overarching, I'd say, basic level things that are needed, that are also needed for CQC inspections and help in that accumulation of data. Okay. So reporting and analytics. This ties back into my point of having everything in the one place. And I'm going to go into it in a little bit more detail when we have a look at the product. but the easier it is to collect the information, the more you're going to be able to report on it. And the more you're going to be in a position for inspections or audits and being able to do everything in like 3-4 clicks, which would just be amazing, really. Care planning, super common. Everyone should have this, of course. Same with things like in-care delivery. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because you'll all have access to this afterwards. EMR is always a not controversial one, but some people love it, some people hate it. I think I've seen it work in two ways. Either teams are like, cool, we're going digital, so let's just go digital for everything and rip the band-aid off. And if we're going to change our way we're doing our care management, let's just change the way we do EMR as well. But I've seen the other side of it as well, where people are like, let us get everyone up and running on a platform first and foremost. And when we're comfortable with that, we can then have a look at the EMR side of things. I appreciate that anyone who's on this call and does medication or signs off on medication, there can be just massive amounts of error with them, time delays, people forgetting to sign things through no fault of anyone's own. So this can be really, really helpful to have all in one, all included. Automation, again, goes back to, the aim of increasing efficiency, increasing productivity. Is there anything that we can automate? Is there anything that we can remove, having to duplicate efforts or duplicate work that we don't need to do? Security, massive one. GDPR, another buzzword. But the information that you guys deal with is really, really sensitive. And I think that's probably one of the major reasons we're trying to go digital, is to get stuff off pen and paper and get things out of the folders in the attic, in the storage rooms. So I think everything on the NHS's assured suppliers list, you can store everything for 7+ years, etc. But yeah, definitely important to spend time on the security aspect. And then last but not least, family aspects here. Can you allow family members to see certain elements? Is there anything there that we can remove from WhatsApping or emailing family members or having them on the phone day and night? Which is fair. But can they see visuals of this as well, which is always nice to think about. And then the company overall. No matter who you go with, you're going to want to be really confident in the level of the support they provide, the company as a whole, and like what that sort of implementation looks like. Is it easy? Are we supported? Are our staff supported? Etc. So super, super important to look at that, especially especially if you're implementing something for the first time. Okay. Perfect. No questions. I'm going to keep going. Perfect. Yeah. Great. Now, last but not least, before we jump into a little overview, just some tick boxes, some things to consider. I think if we go back from the start there and we look at the why we're going digital, the things to consider beforehand. Everyone's going to do their research now. It's rare for me to get in a conversation with someone and them not to have, looked into the NHS's lists, the ICS recommendations, the Facebook pages, etc. I think probably what I see missing the most is an understanding of like what's needed for that service. So is it like, having EMR versus having easy care plans versus having the ability to sign documents on the app and stuff. So I think when it comes to then purchasing or making that final step, some things here are super important in my opinion. The one would be testing the solution. I recommend everyone trial it. I think you should try and trial every software you look at. typically 5 days is enough. And this is just, logging in, being like, can I use it? Can my support workers use it, or my carers use it easy enough with no training? I think, you can see like people will be able to demonstrate a platform in the nicest way possible, but I look at it every day, so of course it's easy for me. And so I always recommend that the people I work with, they go and they trial it, and they try and break it, and they come back with their queries and their questions, because at the end of the day, you are going to be using it internally, and you need to make sure that you're really confident in your decision. Um, the other one on this one is around future plans and roadmaps. Um, you don't want to, you'd love to be getting into a partnership with a provider that is going to change. So you don't necessarily want to be with something that's static, because technology moves just so fast. And so what we have now at the moment is great, and we're doing really, really well. But like, in 5 years' time, you want that platform or that provider that you go with to keep up with the times and keep up with the changing technologies. So this is one that people don't really ask, but again, it allows us to focus on that like long-term vision. Nobody wants to go through picking a software provider every 2 years. You want this to be like a long-term decision, and so always interesting to see what those future plans look like, and what that roadmap looks like, and what that like, we're here now, but what could we look like in 10 years time? So those would kind of be my two ones there that I would typically recommend. But yes, any questions then at this point before I jump in? I'm going to share my screen. Nope, all good. Brill. So let me share my screen very quickly, and we're going to give this a go. Now, can everyone see that? It's the age-old question on these things. Fab, thank you, Stu. Brill. So I'm going to keep this super high level. Again, I know that I know this very well, this platform, you'd hope. So the more questions, the better at this point. Pop them in, Stu can cut across me. But yeah, fab. So Log My Care, very briefly, works in two ways. We've got a mobile app and a care office, like a desktop version. So that's where your managers are going to spend all their time. That's where reg managers, team leads, senior carers, if you want them in there, that's where they're going to live, okay? Whereas the app is where your carers are going to be, okay? You're going to be able to record care here. We're not going to be able to edit anything on the app. And this is going to tie back to kind of this idea behind ease of use, okay? So I think one of the big trade-offs at the moment is having a solution that is really, really easy to use, and you could confidently put it in your carer's hands tomorrow and they'd be able to use it, versus something that's going to have all the bells and whistles, but people are going to struggle to use, okay? We've gone on the ease of use piece, because the more evidence you collect and the more data we have all in one place, the more you can do with it. But anyway, so we pop in here. I'm going to be prompted to enter in my 4-digit PIN. Okay, so we don't have to like write in long email addresses. We don't have to write in long passwords. Super quick and easy. Everyone has an individual PIN, a bit like online banking, and we follow all the way through that. Okay. This is our landing page or our dashboard for it. Okay. I'm going to jump straight down here to the daily log section. All right. Because this is the crux of collecting the information that we need for inspections, for audits, and evidence our care. So everybody that I support or I look after is going to be down here. If I look after, I work with 25 residents or 25 clients, cool, they'll be there. If I only work with one, I'll only see one. All right. Popping into Charlie here, it's going to pull up the 8 areas of the CQC recording guidelines. So everything you're doing now, everything you're recording now is going to map in here. All right. This is created with nurses and carers and those guidelines in mind. Okay. Again, the idea behind this is that we just want to make it as quick and easy as possible to record the care. We don't want paragraphs. We don't want long things of text. We just want to tap all the way through. I'm going to jump into personal care here. Again, conscious we probably have a ton of different souls on this call that work in different types of services. So we can, toggle off things as we need to. But for the sake of this, I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. I'm going to navigate into getting dressed here. Okay. We're just going to follow it through. So Charlie, he was getting dressed. He consented. Did he require assistance? No, he was really good today. And we're done. Quite literally, I could save that log and that'd be it. It took me 2 seconds, and we've collected all the information that we needed to record that personal care. Okay. However, we will always have the opportunity to add additional comments. Okay. And we can talk into the speaker down here. Okay. And it'll voice dictate it for us. We can add media. Really, really great great ability to like provide evidence to family members. So I'm in a little box at the moment. So we'll use this photo. So, great for activities, I think in a lot of like LD situations, it's always so hard to type out like everything or write out everything that you did with the person you're supporting at that time, but how amazing just to add a video and everyone can see the video. We can flag things for handover. Bam, done, dusted. Don't have to think about it again. Means we're not forgetting anything. We can link a goal. Okay, this slightly separate from care plan goals. This would be like something that I've sat down with Charlie with. Maybe he's choosing the correct outfit for the weather. Amazing. Add goal. Timestamps it. Okay. Oh, you can't see that, can you? No, you can't. Timestamps it anyway. And we press save log. That information is automatically sent to the care office. So you in management, if you're working from home, you can see all of those logs coming in real time. So really, really good visibility over the whole service. Popping into the logs here, into Charlie, okay? And we can see this paragraph here. I didn't have to type anything. I've just tapped through it, and we can see the photo of Charlie in his new coat. Okay. Perfect. I'm not going to distress anyone and ask if anyone has any questions at this point. So I'm just going to keep going. Quickly going into the supported person's profiles, we can change this name here as well, by the way, depending on how you refer to your people you support. Into Charlie. Everything about Charlie is going to live in the one place. Super easy. I don't have to click through a load of things to find, care plans, risk assessments, just all in the one place. Logs, body maps, charts. I am going to go into care plans though. And we're going to be able to see all of them here together. Okay. I can tell there's been a change in this one in particular because it's in bold and there's a little red dot. Okay. We can see when it was last reviewed by what the overarching goal is here. Actions, strengths, needs. We've got 47 risk assessment templates on the system, so you can use them, tie them into the care plan. I don't have to go off then to a risk assessment section and try and find what's connected to what. We can see all the times that Charlie has signed his care plan, and if he can't do so, his nominated individual. And then down the end here, we've got this gorgeous mark as red button. And the minute I press that, my little icon pops up, a bit like a WhatsApp blue tick. So everyone in management knows that I can see it, I've acknowledged it, and yeah, I don't have to be signing a piece of paper somewhere. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen on that one. Okay, and I'm gonna very briefly jump into, am I okay on time, Stu, if I do 5 more minutes? I completely got carried away with myself there. And let me just jump into our desktop then. Perfect. Okay, fab. Can everyone see that okay? Yes. Again, I'm going to just say yes, you can. Fab. Yeah, cheers. Perfect. So this is the landing page or the dashboard then for the management point of view. Okay. And this is where we're going to get to see that overview, that visibility of everything that's going on within the service. Really cool thing about Log My Care is that we're able to switch sites really easily. Okay, so say you're across, again, 12 different homes, 12 different sites, you can have them separated, and then we can just switch between them really quickly. Okay, so we're just in Birchmore Lodge at the moment. Incidents that need reviewed, any alerts, so anything that's, has been logged on the phone will be automatically pushed in here to the alert section. Outstanding to-dos, outstanding care plans. I've got 40 overdue. God knows I'd be failing inspections left, right, and centre. And then if you do look at the EMAR, we have what's been signed for, what hasn't been signed for. Okay. I'm going to just briefly jump in here to these incidents. Okay. And here we can see our incident list. We can see our incidents per month, just very quickly. So we're able to begin reporting on things like that. But if I hop in here and we just added this one for a second. So this is where Charlie fell yesterday, I think it was. And we can actually create a whole case for this. So this is a recent feature we launched. So instead of having to record things now, on the app, we're now able to go through that full incident report together on the dashboard or on the desktop version, which is really, really cool. So can we start reporting on how many falls there's been in the kitchen, like I mentioned earlier? What was the severity of this? Was there anyone else involved? Restrictive practices, safeguarding, what our follow-up actions were. Do we need to notify the CQC? Obviously, debriefing that has to happen. And recent feedback we got actually from someone that went through a new CQC inspection on the single assessment framework. They liked this because now you have to evidence that not only did you debrief and learn from the incident, what steps did you take to improve on it or to prevent that happening again. So really great to get that all in the one place. Finishing off just in this log section here, I'm going to cancel this and we're going to jump in here. Ooh, sorry, I'm on 2 screens at the moment. Perfect. Just jumping into the logs here. This goes back to anyone looking for X amount of information about a resident. We're able to filter over here by a certain time frame. You're able to select your supported person. So let's say Charlie. We obviously use Charlie for everything here. And then you're able to filter down by category. So say we want to know how many activities Charlie's been part of in the last month. Bam, it took 2 clicks there, and we've got absolutely everything listed. We can export that as a CSV file or an Excel file, and send that off to the necessary third parties. Okay. And then just to show you more a little bit on the reports here, things like handover history, monitoring reports all in the one place, and things like care planning. So we'll be able to see those care plans that are overdue as well. So this one for 242 days, totally need to go do that at some point. Perfect. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and jump back in here. It's a whirlwind tour. And yes, that is pretty much us done. A couple of reviews from our customers. It ties into sort of the importance of case studies and getting a bit of, I suppose, feedback from people that are in your position doing your job versus me running through a demo. But yes, kind of wrapping that up. Any Q&As at this point? Add bespoke forms, for example. Okay, cool. Great question. Um, so in terms of daily logs, you can do like custom ones under the logs, and then return to Missy. I'm not quite sure what that is. Yeah, I can look at it for you if you have you'll have someone either Charlotte or Flacker to work with. So I don't know if you want to message you and leave the name of the home, that'd be great. Or you'll have my email address here. If you want to send me a quick email about that. Cool. I'm not quite sure what geofencing means or what that is. Um, Great question, Jonathan. You can send me an email. That'd be fab. And we can get that sorted. I'll also share these slides with you. And you can click into the kind of book a demo form there as well. So happy to put a bit of time in this week if you want, or next week even. Pricing, great question. We do have pricing on the website very roughly, but we will price per resident or per client. And yeah, I think Stu's answered that, so that's cool. And then in terms of that, so we have like our uh, core package fee. So that'll be your like license fee. And then our add-ons are EMAR and the family portal. And then there's an implementation fee, but then that is all of it. No, sorry, Stuart, I'm answering your question here. We don't have any HR functionality. This is, again, it's an age-old toss-up between having something that is all the bells and whistles versus kind of like a best in class, I suppose. And so what we've done is we've focused on just being a really good care management software rather than touching off the operational side. For blanket policies and procedures like that everyone would have, like fire safety, you can add them onto the platform, but they can't be like segmented for like only certain people, if that makes sense. So people can view them, but they'd be not segmented. Oh, sorry. Yes, the geolocation. Yes, we have geo tracking on the app for the logs. So you would just decide to turn that on if you wanted to. And it's pretty like within 10 meters, I'm pretty sure. So that's how we would do that. So for anyone who's got like dom care provider, you'd be able to track your cares that way. Brill, love this. This is like a hot fire round in the hot seat. Any any more questions? Mm, Um, you can yeah, like you could do that if you wanted to. My only concern with the generic email is that you couldn't track who had made what changes. Um, so I would probably recommend everyone having an individual email address. And then do you charge the setup fee before the actual price of number of clients? I'm not 100% sure on that question. We would charge like both together. So you would go through you'd like sign a contract, and then when you start using Log My Care, you'd go through like an implementation process, and that's what you would pay for within that training fee. Yeah, it's £450 as a once-off fee for the remote implementation. So that'll be like online training over Zoom, etc. Waiting times are quite short. Log My Care it is easy to set up. We've got teams set up in 8 to 12 days. So you're not looking at like a 6 month long process here. So yeah, very much up to yourselves how fast you'd want to move. Gorgeous. Um, Great. Any more questions there, or do reach out? So Stuart, we're currently working with about 10% of the Aldine supported living market across the UK at the moment. So it's working quite well in that. Is there any specific questions on that, or does management and staff have the same access? Yes. If they had like an admin level, Sam, they would. Yeah, cool. Um, if anyone doesn't want to type as fast as that, I know I would be one of those people, as I am horrifically dyslexic. Um, you can send me an email after this and I will get back to your questions. They're more than happy to jump on a quick phone call as well, and go through anything in a little bit more detail. Thank you so much all for taking time out of your day to listen to me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully it was a little bit helpful. It's super exciting, I think, going digital. I think it is really scary, but if you think about it, we put a plan in place, and look at like, what needs to be achieved, what's going to make it a success, and take it just kind of step by step. It'll all work out in the end. But yes, any questions, let me know. We'll share this afterwards. Stu, I think it might come from your email. And yeah, more than happy to help. And you'll get access to this as well. Okay.